The only way your body's going to be resilient enough to recover from any destructive insult is to make sure you have access to the right food, which is why you're going to want to listen to this interview with Ashley Armstrong, who's one of the pioneering regenerative agriculture farmers on the planet and has really optimized the strategies and structures to provide you with the highest quality animal products like eggs and cheese.
Carbohydrates are vital. They're optimal, they're required, they're necessary. And so it's up to you as an individual to find what carbs work well for you. Focus on those for a period of time. Work on implementing more, slowly increasing those that work well for you, because that over time is going to raise your metabolic rate. As you raise your metabolic rate, your body temperature rises, and that is the whole goal. Small tweaks in your day-to-day diet and lifestyle can have profound implications on how your system functions as a whole. When you improve metabolism and thyroid health, all parts of the body improve, all functioning improves. Health shouldn't be hard. You shouldn't be overwhelmed, and you are not forever broken. If you give the body the tools it needs, remove the metabolic brakes, and use simple body temperature measurements, you will be able to see firsthand you can move the needle forward in your health.
Welcome, everyone. Dr. Mercola helping you take control of your health. And we're in for a treat, at least for me, certainly, is to get to interview a chicken farmer and one of the best chicken farmers in the world, Ashley Armstrong. So welcome back, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Dr. Mercola. It's always a pleasure because it's fun to chat with people who are so obsessed with metabolism. And there's not many of us, but we nerd out hard, and it's fun to engage in these type of conversations. So I always appreciate these opportunities.
So many people may not know that you have a podcast, and that podcast is Strong Sisters. And you probably say, what the heck is that? Well, the reason they don't know is because it's not obvious, but you were into bodybuilding for quite some time, or resistance training. So why don't you share that story about your personal journey in health, and how you pivoted out of that? Because I believe when you were doing that, and you're still doing to some extent, but not as much as you used to, you had a different view on food choices.
Yeah. So my sister and I, Sarah, her last name is now Embry. She just got married.
Yes,
so
and you were the maid of honor.
Yes, I was, and I'm the lone Armstrong left, but Ashley and Sarah Armstrong, so the Strong Sisters, and we started our health journey sharing it online through weightlifting and resistance training because we saw so many health benefits. It also led to so much empowerment, because when you are strength training or following some sort of workout plan and you see yourself progress, it's so empowering. It is so satisfying and fulfilling because it's you versus you, right? It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. So we started our strength training journey, documenting it, and it was cool to see ourselves progress. I hit 405 pounds for deadlift at 136 pounds.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I thought I was doing good at 400 pounds.
We got really into powerlifting.
For those who don't know, 405 is 4 plates each side. Yeah. God, I cannot believe it. Did you win some local competition with that?
No, my squats suck. So your biomechanics impact how well you can do the big lifts, right? Like squat, bench, deadlift. Yeah. I've got long arms and long legs. So deadlifting, I was meant to deadlift. I was not meant to squat. But Sarah was a really good squatter. But we got so obsessed with strength training and powerlifting, and then eventually ran into some health issues because the big trend in the powerlifting community at the time was something called if it fits your macros. So oh, go ahead, fit Oreos into your macros, eat a box of cereal. And so these food decisions caught up to us, very rich in PUFA, processed ingredients, fillers, dyes. And we didn't realize how important animal protein was and animal fats for getting vital fat soluble vitamins, and then also just hitting your daily B vitamin needs. So these decisions kind of started to accumulate over time, and we ran into some autoimmune conditions. Sarah was diagnosed with kind of lupus at age 21, and the doctor said, here's a prescription drug for you. And it's oh my gosh, this is reversible. So that was a big wake up moment of.
Did she take the drug? The drug? Okay,
no.
Good.
That's what led down our rabbit hole. So that was the start of our rabbit hole. Okay, how do we actually take control of our health and not use the Western medicine system because it clearly doesn't have solutions for us.
Yeah.
So that's where it all began. And then we went down rabbit holes of keto, fasting, carnivore, all of that. And we felt relief initially because, of course, if you remove fat and food ingredients, you start introducing bioavailable protein, B vitamins. Of course, you're going to feel better until you don't. And then those decisions caught up to us after about 2 years, stumbled upon the work of Dr. Ray Peat, and have the rest is history. So, becoming finally aware of how important thyroid and metabolic health is for systemic health, rather than viewing different compartments of the body separately, like how Western medicine wants you to view. They want you to view your heart as a silo, independent from your liver, independent from your muscles, independent from your brain, but it's all connected. And when you learn the bioenergetic principles, it's so freeing. It's so freeing because small tweaks in your day-to-day diet and lifestyle can have profound implications on how your system functions as a whole. There's less dogma. You're not as stressed out. You don't feel tied down to a disease because you realize that when you improve metabolism and thyroid health, all parts of the body improve, all functioning improves. So that's kind of the past, and where we're at today, just continuously striving to optimize that and fix all the things that were damaged from before and sharing about it because it changed my life, right? It gave me so much more mental freedom, so much more confidence, improved health, function, vitality, and more people need to learn this way of thinking. And I think it can help a lot of individuals not only improve their health, but also improve the mental side of it too.
Yeah, the important one for sure. So how long ago was it when you first encountered Dr. Peat's work?
2019, I believe.
Okay, so that's not that long ago. It's 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as we were recording this, it's shortly before, but when this podcast interview airs, it'll likely be on the 2-year anniversary of Dr. Peat's departure.
Yeah.
So he's been gone for 2 years, and we've certainly done, I have, and you have on your channel, of course, are both resources to find more information about this. And then Georgie Dinkoff, and there's others who promote this work. But Georgie, I've interviewed a number of times, as have you. So it's a deep rabbit hole. And it took me almost 2 years, actually a little less than 2 years, because I'd say over a year, probably a year and a quarter before I truly comprehended what he was teaching, because there's so many pieces to the puzzle. It is not a simple strategy. It's not just, it's relatively simple once you understand it, but it's so comprehensive that to wrap your mind around it, it just takes a lot of studying to figure it out. Was that your experience? That was my experience. Was that yours?
So much. Like I went to graduate school, and I'm not using anything that I learned in graduate school, but one thing that I am grateful for is the ability to read through research papers in the literature, because that's a skill that you kind of have to develop.
Yeah.
And now there are AI tools that are definitely helping one along that path, but that skill was finally put to test learning the work of Dr. Peat, because you read one thing, you go find research papers that support what he said, and it's just this never ending thing. There's not many resources where all of it's put together. And the most unfortunate thing is that people, the critics of Dr. Peat's work, they just take this arbitrary Ray Peat diet that someone has constructed from the Ray Peat forum that Dr. Peat has never said anyone to follow. And that's what people assume that he's saying. So, milk, orange juice, sugar. That's the Ray Peat diet. And it's just, that's so far removed from all of the important things that Dr. Peat talks about. It's a huge distraction. And honestly, I think that it's not fair. Yeah, it's a disservice. It's not fair to him. The amount of work that he has put in to share this information. And he took the work of intelligent people before him, like Gilbert Ling, Albert St. Georgie, and then he shared his interpretation, added in his research. He studied estrogen and progesterone in graduate school, took that information, passed that on, and now there's all of us that are, it's like our duty and our responsibility to take his work and continue to share it in our own words So that way, because everyone learns a little bit differently, so you may resonate with the way that one person explains more than the other, and that's okay. That's totally fine. But now we all have, like, it's such an honor to be able to continue to share his work because he was such a pioneer and he questioned everything, right? And I think that that's the most important part of his work, especially given modern times. He stood up against huge corporations at a time when estrogen was being pushed as the female hormone and beneficial.
And it still is.
It still is.
Yes, to this day.
And he also was one of the first people to stand up against PUFAs because he saw this transition. He went to school in an era before estrogen and PUFAs were pushed as healthy. And then he saw the transition with corporate interests taking over and pharma taking over. And then he's like raising the red flag. Hello, we don't want more of these lower metabolic rate. And so now it's our duty to help share this because we may actually be able to see positive changes if more and more people are learning about the consequences of what we're being pushed as healthy.
Yeah. And he is a pioneer for sure. He did his PhD was in estrogen, and that was in 1982. That was the year I graduated medical school. Wow. So that's why he finished his PhD. So that's pretty interesting. The other thing is I think it's fair to give him the accolade, and I would certainly award him an honor for that, as the greatest health educator of the 20th century. No question. I don't think anyone comes close. Nothing comes close. But this is now the 21st century, and we're taking his work to the next level. And I think you can weigh in, but I think that the book you helped me put together, Your Guide to Cellular Health, which is now out and available, and not as a print book. A print book will be the first part of December, early December, but the electronic version is. And I think that is the best compilation of and distillation of his work in one place. And it's actually best because it's actually innovated on some concepts that he pioneered and innovated, but didn't take to the next level. And I think you and I both together figured this out. People don't know that. Ashley is the hidden secret sauce behind my appreciation and refinement of Ray's principles. And what we should talk a little bit about this now because it's important. And it's absolutely confusing because first of all, there's this perception that carbs are bad. And of course, we don't need to go there. We've done that many times. Carbs are not bad. You need a certain threshold. And if you don't get that threshold of about 250 grams a day, that's 8 ounces of pure carbohydrate a day, you're going to run into troubles because your body has to make that much. And when you do that, you have to secrete cortisol, and that's not good. So, but the issue becomes, well, what carbs do you eat? A low carb seems to work, and you alluded to that because you're not essentially feeding the preponderance of pathogenic disease-causing bacteria that devolved because of all these mitochondrial poisons that Pete was the first major individual to ever identify. And that's how I finally got to understand him in 2022, maybe 2021, but mostly 2022. It was just literally 30 years after I first encountered his work. And I realized he was a genius because he knew that PUFAs, omega-6 specifically, are the worst mitochondrial poison on the planet because of their prevalence. So it's that his understanding of that was massive. So anyway, because of this destruction of mitochondrial function that limits the ability to create an ideal environment in your colon, everything shifts to bad bacteria. And when you have bad bacteria predominant, if you eat healthy carbs that are virtually everyone believes is healthy, like vegetables and fiber and oats and wheat and organic grains, well, they're going to cause you problems, big problems, so much so that it's really one of the cruxes, the primary reasons why we're having this health epidemic. So the real and Pete didn't understand this. He didn't. And I'll have you weigh on this in a moment, because he sort of non-discriminately said no one should eat these carbs because of the fiber. And maybe I'm mistaken, but that's my perception. And so that's most of the people. He's right. That's what it works. So it works for so many people. But once you get healthy, things change. Your microbiome improves, and actually you have good bacteria that can benefit from it, and you can shift. So that's the whole challenge, and that's what we seek to help people understand and train and implement through the book, Your Guide to Cellular Health, specifically chapter 10. which discusses this. And we actually give a traffic light system. So we give gray colors, different colors, green, yellow, and red, and identify the carbs. And the green carbs are pretty low. It's basically white rice, sugar, and whole fruit. And then they progress up from there. All right, so you can have the floor and comment on that.
No, I think that you bring up a really great point. And the fact is that Dr. Pete, I think, provides a lot of hope for people who are not in the best state. Yeah. He provides reason and steps forward, actionable steps forward on how one can get out of this low metabolic state. The problem is then people on the internet then take those ideas and then push that forward as the only way. So they push this ideology that grains and starches are bad, and you should only have sucrose and fructose sources. And that leads to some like dogma and superiority complex that really bothers me, because Dr. Pete never said just consume those. However, I do think that it's important to realize that the healthier someone becomes, the wider array of food that they can consume. And I think the wider array of the wider array of food that you can consume, that is a sign of health. That is a sign of robustness. That's a sign of good mitochondrial health, good gut health. And so that should be the goal of where to get to. I think a lot of people just stay in this place of, okay, I need to like fix myself. But at a certain point, you do want to start adding additional carbohydrates. And that's why I do like your carbohydrate outline in the chapter, because there's a point where we have to meet where we're at, right? Everyone is at a certain state, and I'm going to be at a different gut health state than someone else. And so you have to be you have to run experiments. And so Dr. Mercola in the book outlines what are good safe carbs to start with. And it's your duty to find which ones you do well with, because if you try one form of carbs and it doesn't work well, so many people say, oh, see, carbs are the worst. I gain weight instantly. They make me feel like crap. And then they just throw in the towel.
But that's a good example of listening to your body. Yes. Don't trust anyone. Listen to what your body's telling you. So if someone says something, you see something different, you got to explore further. Don't just stop there and just throw out the baby with the bathwater, because your body's telling, when you eat those carbs and you got worse, you got to reevaluate. Don't do that again.
So that is the whole premise of the bioenergetic pro-metabolic way of thinking. Carbohydrates are vital. They're optimal. They're required. They're necessary. And so it's up to you as an individual to find what carbs work well for you. Focus on those for a period of time. Work on implementing more, slowly increasing those that work well for you, because that over time is going to raise your metabolic rate. As you raise your metabolic rate, your body temperature rises. And that is the whole goal. We want to be hot. We want to be hot. We don't just want to look good. We want to be hot inside of us. Because all the functions in our body, they run off of enzymes, and enzyme reaction rates depend on temperature. It is well documented in the literature. Enzymatic rates are optimized at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. I can say with confidence, most people listening to this interview are nowhere near that temperature. And as a result, that means that enzymatic rates have been downregulated, because enzymes require a certain body temperature to run at an optimal speed. So if we can find carbs that you work well with, slowly increase that amount over time, you'll see your metabolic rate rise, you'll see your body temperature rise. That's going to lead to improved systemic function, which will then be a feed forward cycle of, hey, I can now tolerate this food. Hey, I don't have food sensitivities to this anymore. Hey, my gut health is improving. My brain is functioning better. I have more energy throughout the day. So you got to find what carbs work well for you right now, slowly increase those, and over time, be open to the idea of adding additional carbohydrates, because this is something that Dr. Mercola and I discussed in previous podcasts and also in his book. Starches are very beneficial. They allow you to take your metabolic rate to the next level. And so if maybe you don't tolerate starches right now, it's not a forever thing. But as you improve your gut health, as you improve your metabolic health, introducing other carbohydrates can be very beneficial to just continue to optimize your health.
Yeah, let's just add a little practical information on this. And the starches that almost everyone can tolerate is white rice. It's not a simple sugar. It's a complex sugar. It's a polymer, a long chain of these glucose molecules, essentially. but it's because it's a long chain, it has different benefits. But some people can't tolerate that. I don't know how many you've seen that can't, but there are certainly some that can't. And really, the safest carb that you can possibly get is, interestingly, what they give you in the hospital, an IV of dextrose. And dextrose has another word. It's called glucose. They're the same molecule. They're not different things. They're just two different names for the same molecule, glucose and dextrose. And so you could actually, now table sugar is a combination of glucose and sucrose, is glucose and fructose, and it's called sucrose. So there's two simple sugars in there, but if you just get the dextrose, that's probably the safest sugar you can get. And there's virtually very, very few people. There's probably, absolutes are rarely true, but there are very few people who would be unable to tolerate dextrose. The key, though, because it is a sugar and it's absorbed very rapidly, and one of the reasons why it's so beneficial is because it's absorbed very high up in the intestine. It never reaches the colon. It can never feed the bad bacteria and cause the release of endotoxin. So that's why it's so useful. But if you drink a whole glass of dextrose, you're going to be in some problems. You're going to have massive metabolic shifts and insulin changes. So you have to sip it very slowly. It's almost like an IV drip is what you're taking. And that's not common, but there are many people who cannot have whole fruits. They'll react. And these are very sick people. And we both know many of these people. And really the way out, especially the terminally ill cancer patients, are frequently like that. The only way out really is through sipping dextrose all day long, like maybe putting a pound of dextrose in a half a gallon of water and just sipping that.
Yeah. So I think it's important to remember, if audience member, if you are doing well with your current way of eating, keep crushing it. If you're pooping every single day, if you are hot, warm body temperatures, you reach 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit midday, you have great energy levels, you digest a wide variety of food, keep doing what you're doing, right? I would say that most people are not anywhere close to that. And that's not it's not a doomsday, because the body is incredible. The body wants to heal if we give it the tools to do so. And so I think an important asterisk in what we're saying right now is add carbs that work well for you. However, you also have to remove things that are going to hinder your ability to use carbs. So we want to give our body carbs and then remove metabolic breaks that are going to interfere with the proper oxidation of those carbohydrates. And so it's about giving the body the tools it needs, which is energy, carbohydrates, protein, micronutrients, but it's also removing things that are going to interfere with the body's ability to pull electrons from those foods, move the electrons through the mitochondria to the end oxygen and electron acceptor. So those breaks, PUFAs, estrogenic substances, I think that those are the two biggest offenders, honestly.
There's two more subsets. One would be plastics, which are also estrogenic.
Yeah.
So microplastics are pervasive. And then EMF, your cell phone and your Wi-Fi router. Those will also destroy mitochondrial function. And when that's the beginning of the end, when your mitochondria start to fail. That's because you cannot create cellular energy. I don't care what food you're eating, it's not going to work. So you have to restore those. But the way to restore them is to eliminate those toxins and eat food, because your body, as you said, intrinsically is adapted to and is resilient enough to want to be healthy. It wants to be healthy. It doesn't want to be sick. And a lot of people are confused about that. They've been brainwashed and propagandized by the traditional model, which thinks that there's a drug for every symptom. And that's the solution for their health ills. Isn't it? They're hardly ever, and I mean hardly ever, less than 0.1% focusing on the foundational cause of disease.
Yep. So, and if someone is curious, like, why are these metabolic breaks? So the carbohydrates are important for your body to be able to convert inactive thyroid hormone T4 into active thyroid hormone T3. And it's T3 that is like the spark plug for your mitochondria. So that T3 turns enzymes on that are required for the electron transport chain to work. The whole goal of eating is to, one, enjoy life, but also is your food contains electrons, and you want those electrons to flow to the end electron acceptor, which is oxygen, at the end of the mitochondrial electron transport chain. You want that to be very fast-paced flow, because that's where we have an optimal metabolic rate. Every time electrons go through the electron transport chain, you get ATP generated, you get carbon dioxide generated, and you get heat generated. So that's why as you improve your metabolic rate, as you get more electron flow, you're going to see your body temperature rise, because you're generating more heat. So T3, active thyroid hormone, is required for certain enzymes along the electron transport chain to be active. Unfortunately, PUFAs, estrogenic substances, EMFs, they block the transport of active thyroid hormone to the cells through TBG, thyroid, what is it?
Thyroid binding globulin.
TBG, when you have more TBG, that's going to inhibit the cell's ability to actually utilize free T3. And so if you want to dive into the mechanisms of why PUFAs, estrogenic-like substances, are keeping our metabolic rates lower, I think it's important to understand that our thyroid system isn't just our thyroid gland. It's our body, it's our cell's ability to access active thyroid hormone T3. And there are a number of things that block that, because your thyroid is going to be largely producing T4, which is inactive. Your liver, your gut, and other organs throughout the body convert T4 to T3. If your cortisol is high, that conversion is downregulated. If your blood sugar is low from low carbohydrate consumption, that conversion is downregulated. You have to convert T4 to T3, but then you also have to get T3 to your cells. And that requires things like TBG and other machinery to get the T3 to where it's supposed to be inside the mitochondria. And so that's what we're referring to when we're saying we got to remove these brakes. The body knows what to do. We can't micro manipulate the body. We need to give the body the tools that it needs, which is carbohydrates, micronutrients, protein, and then remove the brakes that are inhibiting with the beautiful natural design.
Agree. So just recently we had Carol Peterson on an interview to help walk people through the assessment of thyroid function. And I actually wanted you on, but you were busy traveling because of some of the things we'll talk about in a moment. But we can pivot there now because one of the tools, the most important tools, is not well understood. And I certainly didn't understand. I mean, I've learned about it 20, 30 years ago, but implementing it is a clinical challenge. And that is measuring your body temperature as an indication of generating this heat you're referring to.
Yeah.
And the biggest mistake I think nearly everyone makes, and certainly I did, is to realize, well, first of all, you don't want a mercury thermometer, even if you could buy it. So don't use a mercury thermometer. Mercury is a poison. It's a neurotoxin for sure. And the last thing you want to do is run against that. But there's digital thermometers, and most people buy the inexpensive digital thermometer, and there's many of them. There's probably dozens or hundreds of brands. But that's not what you need. You need a very specific type of thermometer. And this is not really widely taught. And I made the mistake. It was called a basal body temperature. And interestingly, I played around with it. There's not that many of them out there. And I looked them on Amazon and found one. I said, well, I'm going to get this one because there's a nice big numbers that you can read with a backlight. And I found it, and you can find it on Amazon. All I have to do is punch it in there. And interestingly, that's the one that you use yourself. So we both came to the same conclusion. This was the best. And it's much easier. And it takes a little bit longer to read, but you can see it easily. And most importantly, it's more accurate because it was just more accurate. It takes longer to measure, but it reads to the hundredth. So you can get like 97.36 or 339 as opposed to 97.31. It's a big difference, So there's some strategies that you can do. And I would like you to go off now and help share your experience. You're not a clinician. You do have a coaching. You maybe can share what you do in that, although you don't do that much because you're changing the world right now. So you used to see clients, but you don't do that much anymore. But so you have a lot of experience, actually more than me, because I stopped seeing patients in this area in 2007. So that's coming up on 15 years. That's over 15 years, 17 years ago now. So it doesn't seem that long ago, but it has been that long. So you can use the body temperature and you can use the thyroid testing, but the thyroid testing costs a bunch. I mean, the cheap thyroid panel doesn't provide much value, and it creates more confusion than it helps, I think, especially with the TSH and the values that are portrayed as being normal aren't. So why don't you walk us through your experience and what you notice when you're helping people navigate this path, and what your current approach is for recommending thyroid testing?
Yeah. So I think it's important to measure something, right? Because if you don't test, you're just guessing. Mm-hmm. And also, how do you know if you're moving the needle forward in your health if you make a change? So then it comes okay, what do we assess to understand if we're moving in the right direction? A lot of people will say, oh, just go get blood work done. That's what mainstream medicine wants you to do, right? Because unfortunately, blood work is just a snapshot in time. It can change very quickly. I could get blood work done today and it could be different for tomorrow. If I experience high stress this evening, if I don't sleep well, if I all of a sudden get sick, my blood work's going to change tomorrow. And that's not anything wrong with the body. It's just your body adjusting and adapting to the stressors that it's undergoing. It's natural, right? And the biggest problem, I actually had an experience with this just a few months ago. I went to a doctor to get asked for blood work because I like to get a full thyroid panel every once in a while, maybe one time a year. And I asked, can I please get a full thyroid panel? And she was like, a what? I was like, full thyroid panel. And she was like, I only know how to read TSH. And I'm like, TSH is the worst indicator of thyroid health. It doesn't give us any information of cellular utilization of thyroid hormone. So there's that barrier that you have to overcome. And that's very hard for people to look at their doctor and say, I want a full thyroid panel. Give me the full thyroid panel. Most of them don't know what to do with it. So that's a huge barrier. How do I convince my doctor that I actually need to look at free T3, reverse T3, T4 beyond what they're just trained for just TSH? TSH is a very poor indicator of overall thyroid health because if your TSH is high, that could mean that your thyroid gland isn't functioning well. But if your TSH is low, that does not rule out hypothyroidism. That does not rule out subclinical hypothyroidism at all. Because again, what matters most is that active thyroid hormone T3 is entering the mitochondria and going into your cells. Blood work doesn't capture that. Even free T3 levels, that doesn't mean that those free T3 are inside your mitochondria and your cells because maybe your TBG is high and it's interfering with your mitochondria's ability to access that T3. So if someone
TBG is not part of a normal thyroid panel.
No.
You have to order that separately.
So if someone is very analytical and they want to see numbers, you could get free T3 and reverse T3 and T4. If your reverse T3 is high, that is a clear sign that you've got a lot of metabolic breaks because I view the reverse T3 as a survival mechanism because your T4, thyroid hormone.
Why don't you say what reverse T3 is first?
Yep. So T4 is inactive thyroid hormone and your body can do two things with it. It can turn T4 into T3 by removing one of the iodines, or it can turn T4 into RT3, reverse T3. And reverse T3 and T3 share the same binding sites. They compete for the same binding sites. T3 will increase metabolic rate. It'll increase ATP production, increase heat. Reverse T3 turns those functions off, so it lowers metabolic rate. The body is very intelligent and it understands when it's a good time to push metabolic rate or to keep it low. So if the body is sensing, hey, we've got a lot of estrogens and are stored in our tissues, this individual is eating a lot of PUFAs, there's environmental signaling that they're in a very stressed out state, it would be disadvantageous for our survival to turn T4 into T3. That's like pushing pedal to the metal in a car without gas. The car is going to crash. So the body knows this and it's able to recognize, hey, this individual is not in a good place. We're going to turn that T4 into reverse T3 to keep metabolic rate low so that the body can survive given the limited resources that it has.
Yeah, another limited resource is not needing enough calories, which you see a lot or have seen a lot.
Yep.
That's probably the biggest one is they think they're trying to lose weight and they don't eat enough calories. And then this is what happens. You get reverse T3 and you lower your metabolic rate.
Yep. Because a lot of people say, oh, it's so important to get your micronutrients in. Yes, micros are important, but your metabolism needs electrons from calories to move through the electron transport chain. If you're not putting enough inputs in, there's nothing to push through. So T4 is going to be turned into reverse T3. Eating high calorie is advantageous and is beneficial. And that is a good sign. If you're able to maintain your weight eating a high calorie amount, that's a good sign that you are at a good metabolic rate. And if you look back to what our ancestors did in old USDA records, it was very common for women to be eating 3,000 calories. Now you see women eating 1,300 calories below starvation levels. That has consequences because your body senses that. Your body is able to tell, there's not much energy coming in. We've got to keep metabolic rate low, or else we're not going to be able to keep up, right? And so we used to work one-on-one with people, but I started to see a pattern, started to see a very similar pattern of, here is a blueprint of what is going to help 90% of people, right? They need to add calories and carbohydrates that work well for them. They need to limit PUFAs as much as possible. And then they've got to be very aware of their estrogen intake through food, through personal care products, through environmental exposures, and they got to stop fasting, right? That combination, that's going to help most people because you're giving the body the tools that it needs. And then you're also removing a lot of the metabolic breaks. So then Sarah and I turned that blueprint into a course, and our course kind of self-guides people through, and it helps empower them, move them past food fear and concerns on, oh my gosh, this food is bad, this food is good. Instead, does that food raise your metabolic rate, or does that food lower your metabolic rate? It's a lot less fear mongering and instead more food awareness. So that's when I've started to realizing that blueprint works for people. Then I was like, okay, how do we make this easier when it comes to food availability? Because think of most foods available, it's really hard to keep the metabolic breaks, phytoestrogens, estrogen-like compounds, and PUFAs low, given the conventional food system. So that's kind of where I took a little detour, and I was like, let's try to improve the food quality. And that is a whole nother beast of an issue. So basically, how can we get quality calories, quality protein, important micronutrients without exposing ourselves to these PUFAs and these higher phytoestrogen and estrogen-like compounds that are lowering our metabolic rate, things that our great-great-grandparents didn't see or experience in their food system because of how much the conventional agriculture system has changed in the last 50 to 70 years.
So let's pivot back to the testing again.
I forgot to talk about the body temperature.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I was going to say, because you didn't mention the body temperature. So give people the guidelines to how to understand in the morning what the numbers are, and then how they should test also after meals, so to understand that the food they're eating is working.
Yes. So basically, you can use body temperature to assess, hey, is my body using the food that I'm eating to raise my metabolic rate? And so essentially, it's assessing, hey, is that food actually being used to generate ATP? And the way we can assess this is changes in body temperature. So I like to have people measure their body temperature 3 times a day. At waking, so when you wake up, after breakfast, about 30 to 45 minutes after breakfast, and then sometime midday. Our body, just like many other functions inside of us, is on a circadian schedule. And so our body temperature is going to be lower in the morning, and then it's going to rise until about midday, early afternoon, and then it'll start to go down again as we get closer to bedtime. So that's a normal pattern. But many people, so it's a curve. We see a curve, but many people, their curve is pushed downwards because their metabolic rate is lower. And our humans can survive at a lower body temperature. That just means you're just surviving. You're not thriving, right? Everything's downregulated. So the goal is to push that curve up. And so we want to see our waking body temperature in the mid to high 97s. So let's say around 97.8, low 98s. That would be ideal. And then we want to be able to reach 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit at the middle of the day. That would be optimal, great to see. And unfortunately, for people living on cortisol, low carb diets, their waking body temperature can be artificially elevated due to the high stress hormones. And what they'll see is that after breakfast, their breakfast was used to lower their stress hormones, so then their body temperature goes down. That's not what we want to see. That's a sign that, hey, you may need some tweaks to not be living on cortisol, living on stress. Let's add some carbohydrates. Let's not be fasting all day. And so we want to be able to see our temperature rise after breakfast, because that is just a clear sign, hey, the body used that meal to generate ATP, and as a byproduct, heat was produced. So do that 3 to 7 times a week. Assess trends week to week. It's not going to be something that fixes right away. It is unfortunately going to require some patience and some amount of time, but being cognizant of your total calorie intake, the amount of carbs that you're consuming, making sure that you're getting enough B vitamin rich animal proteins, and keeping our PUFAs as low as possible. Those are really going to be things that are going to move the needle forward. And it's very freeing because you can measure this at the comfort of your own home. You don't have to go to a hospital with really bright lights. You don't have to go get blood work done, go drive far away. This is a very easy tool. And the reason that I like it better than blood work is because blood work still doesn't tell you whether your mitochondria are actually using that thyroid hormone T3. If your body temperature is rising, that's a clear sign. Hey, cellular utilization of T3 is happening. Your electron flow, electron transport chain is functioning well. And so it's a super easy way. And Dr. Broda Barnes is kind of like the pioneer here in assessing this, outlining this. Dr. Pete added on pulse measurements on top of body temperature to just gauge systemic function as well, because mainstream tells us we want low pulses, but we actually want more moderate, 70 to 95 pulse, because that's just a sign of nutrients and fluid and thyroid hormone moving quickly throughout your body, as opposed to things being slowing down.
Good. So just a few tips to give people an idea to refine this is when you take the temperature in the morning, you want to be the first thing as soon as you get out of bed. And when you're taking it later in the day, just to be mindful of the fact that if you've eaten something hot or drank hot liquid like a tea or a coffee, or conversely, if you consume something cold like a iced tea, that's going to change the temperature in your mouth. So you have to basically stay off of that for at least 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes before it'll equilibrate back down to get an accurate temperature, because it could go up a degree or two or go down a degree or two.
Yeah.
So just be careful.
Paying attention to the temperature of your food can be super helpful for people that have very low body temperatures. And this is actually talked about in ancient Chinese medicine a lot. If someone is in a, they call it like an unwell state, and so in this equivalent, it would be a low body temperature, they recommend do not consume any cold foods. Make sure that all of your food is warm, because our digestive system functions. Remember, your stomach, there's digestive juices, there's enzymatic reactions happening all the time. If your digestive tract is not at a high temperature, it's not going to function that well. And so keeping your food warm can be a great way to help support your body as you are improving your metabolic rate.
Good. So I was a bit saddened to hear of your experience with going to a doctor to get your blood test. And I want to let you know, and certainly everyone here watching, that experience will not be necessary at all in the future, because literally shortly after this podcast airs, we're going to be launching hopefully, we may have to delay it because we're still developing the application, but the Mercola Health Coach, which will be revolutionary. And that's being understated for sure, because not only will it help you understand this, and it will have a voice-to-voice interface, which is a feature that virtually no other apps have at this point. It will be pervasive in the future, but right now virtually none do. In other words, you'll be able to talk to it, and it will answer your question back. Not like Siri, but really your specific questions based on your biology and in context of the information we just talked about today. But in addition to that, very shortly, hopefully by the end of the year, well, maybe it may be for certainly first quarter next year, we will be launching Mercola Health Labs, which will allow you to order virtually any lab for a fraction of the cost. And maybe for many people, we're going to give it to you for free. For free, your lab. I know that sounds extraordinary, but it's true. And when it's a result of ordering some supplements. And if you order a certain level, then we give you the lab test for free. And then when you get your supplements, there'll be a blotter card that you just prick your finger and you drop a few drops of blood in the card and you mail it in. And literally within a few days later, on your Coach app, on your phone, will be your lab results that you can discuss. There's no question. There's no debate, no arguments with the healthcare professional who knows less than you do frequently, as it did in your experience, about your health and what the optimal testing is. And you just get whatever test you want, and it will tell you, it will give you a comprehensive report that explains in detail and that you can ask questions on. And there's no extra charge for this. No extra charge. So I mean, that's extraordinary, because most of the time these tests are hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
And we're, our base test that will probably be well over $100, our intention is to offer for free. For free. It's a revolutionary technology that will literally overturn the existing lab industry. Overturn it almost overnight. So I'm so excited. This has never been done before in history. We're the first company to ever launch this.
And I think we've talked offline about like what that base lab should be. Mm-hmm. But I think another base test that one can use as just a metric, right, of if you're moving in the right direction is cholesterol. So hopefully you guys can incorporate cholesterol into that. I don't know how expensive.
No, that is one of the base tests for sure. It's going to be a chem profile, which has 20 different tests, cholesterol being one of them, but also a lipid panel, and triglycerides and calcium and phosphorus, because many chem profiles or metabolic panels do not have phosphorus, and phosphorus is really, really important. Most people don't understand that. And uric acid and GGT and all the other liver enzymes. And we're going to have, because it's important, it's probably the single most important test, and I think we're in agreement on this, and that is insulin. Because when you have a fasting glucose and a fasting insulin, you can tell if someone's insulin resistance. Yeah. Now, that in most people is going to be almost all you need to know. But there's one other marker that isn't a test. It's just an understanding of how much carbohydrate you're eating. Because if you have low insulin resistance and you're eating enough carbohydrate, you're almost by definition healthy. But there are a number of people who have low insulin resistance, like these would be typically low carb, keto, carnivore people, who have virtually no insulin resistance, but they're not healthy because they're not getting enough carbs. And then eventually they suffer. They have a lot of symptoms, and they actually do have these high peaks of blood glucose in the morning after they're sleeping, but when they wake up, because they go hypoglycemic because their body's not making enough glucose, and they have to secrete a lot of cortisol, and that causes a lot of complications. So I'm excited to announce this, and I can't wait for it to happen.
I view lab work as like report cards, right? So you can get like report cards at like 3 to 6 month intervals, right? And they can show longer timestamps of moving in the right direction. So I mentioned cholesterol as an example. It's so funny that cholesterol is now viewed the way that it is today. It's viewed as this isolated mechanism because statins are single-handedly the most profitable biopharma medicine to exist ever in our history. Before biopharma, Merck manual and doctors utilized cholesterol, body temperature, and pulse to assess thyroid. And it was well accepted that a elevated cholesterol was known to be the result of hypothyroidism, because your body needs free T3 to convert that cholesterol into protective steroid hormones. So before biopharma took it over as like saturated fat is bad, PUFA is good, and take these statins to keep your cholesterol lower, Merck manual used body temperature, pulse, symptom analysis, and cholesterol to assess hypothyroidism. So I'm excited for these resources to come back out to bring us back to before Western medicine, biopharma takeover, when hypothyroidism was kind of understood as one of the root causes, low metabolic rates, low energy availability. And so doing tests like these as like report cards, and then day to day, week to week, using body temperature and pulse to see that you're moving in the right direction, because that's an encouraging thing in someone's health journey. They want to be able to see that they're improving, right? Gold star, gold stamp on their head every day. Like, look, we're seeing small improvements over time. 6 months intervals of blood work can be hard to like say, okay, I'm working towards that. Whereas body temperature, daily body temperature measurements, that can give you day-to-day feedback. And then boom, you get these report cards of, wow, my cholesterol is in a more normal range. My T3 is higher. My reverse T3 is lower. And it's that like accumulation of your day-to-day changes and improvements that have finally come to fruition.
Yeah. I mean, we have something that approaches that with continuous glucose monitors, or CGMs. And I've done that a number of times, and there's certainly value there, but it doesn't tell you what your insulin levels, doesn't tell you your other markers. So
I think that CGMs need to be thrown away. I think that they are causing massive eating disorders, extreme orthorexia, and the whole point of eating is to raise your blood sugar.
That people understand. And actually, Dr. Casey Means, who's a wonderful woman, she's really enlightened and very articulate and moving in the right direction. But she actually is the founder of Levels, which is one of the main CGMs.
CGM's got to go away. Like, it is causing extreme food fear because someone eats a banana and they see a spike and they freak out. The purpose of eating is to raise our blood sugar. Our body has to keep our blood sugar in a very narrow range. And if you don't give your body and your liver carbohydrates to keep that range elevated, your body is going to use your muscle. It's going to use your dietary protein to perform gluconeogenesis and keep that blood glucose in a very narrow range. Flatline blood sugar is not normal. It's not normal, and it's not desirable because your body is using other resources in your body to maintain that flat line. Whereas a much more normal pattern is flat, and then you eat a meal that contains carbohydrates and, of course, some dietary fat and some protein too. No one here is saying just eat only carbs. You're going to see a spike, and then you're going to see it go back down. And then you go back down to baseline, and then you see a spike and you go back down. Of course, the two problems are going to be those flat line because, as Dr. Mercola mentioned earlier, for many of these individuals, you see that flat line, their fasting blood sugar just rises over time, just keeps going up and up and up. And then a clear sign of insulin resistance is you see that spike and then it remains elevated, right? Instead, we want to see peaks and then back down to normal, peak, back down to normal, because that's giving our body the carbohydrates that it needs to convert T4 to T3, to keep our blood sugar elevated. Our body performs best when we have full glycogen stores, full blood sugar levels, because the body's always listening, it's always paying attention, right? And so when you send that signal of my blood sugar stores are good, my glycogen levels are full, that's a sign of safety and abundance that the body can then say, oh, this organism is in a good state. Let's convert more of that T4 into T3 instead of reverse T3. We can have a higher metabolic rate because there is actually enough energy coming in to push our metabolic rate higher.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, thank you for your commentary on the CGM and helping people understand that, because I didn't realize you felt so strongly about it. But I want to talk about the report cards. Normally,
hold on. One thing there. I do think that there's value in using CGMs on occasion to see if you are in this state of like rising blood sugar and then you may remain
persistent, right?
But I don't think that one should use a CGM to assess whether an individual food spikes your blood sugar. That's very dangerous, and it's very eating disorder, orthorexia-like behavior. And instead, we should be assessing whether meals are raising our body temperature and if our blood sugar goes back down to normal. And that can be assessed with how much fat we're consuming in that meal, how much PUFAs we're consuming, our estrogen dominant state, and what carbohydrates we're consuming. So I just wanted to clarify there. It has value, but it shouldn't be used every day. And I see firsthand the eating disorder and orthorexia that it's giving to people.
Okay, good. Thanks for that feedback. So I just wanted to update in the past, most people are doing these blood tests every 6 months, every year, sometimes every 2 years, because of the hassle factor and the cost. It is not easy. You've got to go take time out of your day, you got to get a prescription for this, and you got to go to the blood lab and get it drawn. And sometimes that's an hour or 2 hour wait. Not always, but occasionally. I've heard horror stories of even longer, like 4 hours, especially during COVID. How do I know? Because I test my blood twice a month, typically, twice a month. And the reason I do this is it's an intervention to actually do a therapeutic phlebotomy. So I take 4 ounces of blood out and throw it away. And that, as we can discuss later, but excess iron is a pretty potent oxidative stress. So if you're not a menstruating woman, you're going to continue to accumulate iron.
And iron plus PUFAs are the most dangerous combination.
Yeah. So, and this is what most people are exposed to. So actually our test will have a ferritin in it too, to screen for this, which is probably the single best screen for excess iron.
Can we pause there real quick?
Sure.
So processed food is fortified flour. So the flour has iron added to it. with vegetable oils. So fortified packaged food that most of America is consuming is literally iron and PUFAs coming in together.
Yeah, it's loaded with PUFAs for sure. Yeah, iron, PUFAs, not a good combination.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, this test, because it's so inexpensive, many people will be able to do what I've done for 2 to 3 decades, is measuring my blood every 2 weeks. It would cost me literally $300 to $400 to do that every month.
Yeah.
And now people will be able to do it. If the extent that I'm doing it, there's definitely going to be a charge for it, because it's a lot. That was a this was not the patient cost. This is my cost as a physician. So we hopefully can get that down to 70 to 80% less than what I was paying for. This is crazy.
Amazing.
And you don't require, you just choose the test on your phone, and you get the card in the mail, and you prick your blood, ideally. And it's so much easier, because when you got to go to get your blood test and it's a fasting, that's a hassle. That's not easy. And that creates some more metabolic stress. So
I live an hour away from a lab place. And so I've got to fast to get there. Cortisol's rising. It's a stressful environment. There's blinking, flashing lights, needles being stuck inside of you. It's not fun.
No. So we make it easy. You do it in the comfort of your own home, and you get the same quality lab testing, which is I'm so excited. We're actually spinning up the lab as we speak, and in the process of getting FDA approval for this testing. But it's the same clinical chemistry that LabCorp Quest uses. Same test. So I'm just beyond thrilled, because this is going to upend the entire lab industry for sure. So what I want to do, we talked a lot about carbs, and I want to pivot to one of your other specialties, because you are one of the world's best chicken farmers, as I alluded to. And I'm hoping that you'll have some influence in the next administration to direct policies to move more towards regenerative agriculture, and supporting policies that will encourage the disparity in food prices as a result of federal subsidies.
Yep.
But barring that, I'd like to pivot to the innovations that we've come up with, and that we've worked together to achieve this. And this is the first time I'm announcing it, but the most valuable part of a chicken egg is the yolk. I don't think anyone knowledgeable would dispute that, unless you're a bodybuilder like you were. Then you would think it's the white, because my trainer, who I love him dearly, and I haven't seen him for a few years now, because I just don't have any time, and I know what to do. He trained me for almost 15 years, and I have a really good home gym, so I do my workouts at home. But he would only eat the whites. I would give him my whites, and I would take the yolks. Yeah. And there are many people who do this, but the yolks are the best part. But so as a result, and I want you to explain and share the results that you've just recently had from the egg yolks that I'm getting right now, and how they're different, and the whole process with the feed and how that integrates into it. But essentially, I just ordered 300 egg yolks from you, and I got them shipped last week, and that fits like 2.5 pounds. It's about 5 pounds of egg yolks, and it fits in a Ziploc bag. And I have a person who works for me, and he held up that bag, and he assumes the chicken responsibilities. And this bag was like the equivalent of dozens of hours of his effort to produce this, because it's a lot of work. And if you've ever grown chickens, you'll know it, especially if you're going to eat them the right food. If you're going to eat them crap food, like conventional organic chicken feed, it's not hard at all. But if you're going to give them the right food that's low in PUFA, it's a problem. So as we're speaking now, I'm liberated from chicken farming, because my chickens are being all given away to people that work with me, and have decided they want to do that, because this is not yet available. It will be available. We're moving towards it. We still have maybe months to navigate through this, because there's some legal structures we have to navigate through to sell this. But essentially, what we do is we break the eggs, we take the egg yolks out, and then we freeze dry them. And I never knew this before engaging with this process. But when you freeze dry food, specifically egg yolks, you essentially remove all the moisture. And as long as you keep that in a state where there's no additional moisture, where it can become rehydrated, the shelf life of that product is almost 5 or 10 years. It doesn't get damaged because you need the moisture to activate the damage and rehydrate. So it's phenomenal, and it makes the life so much easier and allows people to have access to the quality of the food that you provide through your service. Nourish Cooperative, I believe, which I used to get some eggs before I started engaging my chickens. I must have been raising chickens for at least 3 or 4 years, maybe longer. And, I had to deal with not only the work, but the predators. And, there's a lot of things that go involved with it. And most people aren't able to do it. But even if they are, most people are not giving you the right food to get the low linoleic acid that you have, because the eggs that you're raising are literally 75% lower in linoleic acid. So to get, and you've got, I think 20,000 people are in back orders for you to get your eggs, but you can't provide them.
Well, we now have eggs available. And so
no.
we don't have a wait list anymore, which is exciting. And so we operate on 7-day schedules because we're doing everything opposite of what the conventional system is doing. The conventional agriculture system wasn't working for our health. It wasn't working for the environment. It's not working for livestock health, right? So we're doing exactly what American families used to do in the early 1900s, late 1800s, when linoleic acid consumption, PUFA consumption was very low. Small scale farming where vaccines and antibiotics and these pharmaceutical interventions weren't required because we're not stuffing animals into buildings. But you bring up a really great point. It takes a lot of time to do farming this way. And a lot of people have already other responsibilities in life. They've got jobs, they've got families to take care of. And so COVID, you saw this big push in homesteading, which was amazing, but I think people realize this is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And for many people, they're doing just fine. They're doing great. Like keep doing it. But it's also okay to not have the time to do it. It's also okay to not raise all of your own food. And that's where I want to try to help people, because I understand like it's a lot of work. The farm is a lot of work, small scale regenerative farming. And so instead, can we create these other food systems where we give farmers a market? Because that's the biggest thing. If farmers have to sell to the conventional system, there's some estimates that say that the farmer makes 7 cents on every dollar of food that they produce. Farmers have to get off the farm jobs to support their farm. So that would be like telling audience member, you go to work for 40 to 60 hours a week, but then you've got to get an off the farm job to support that job. Or you got to get another job to support that job.
Because that's not going to pay enough to live.
It's not going to, farmers are going out of business. Conventional system promotes this get big or go home mindset. You got to buy bigger machinery. You got to have more animals compacted into a smaller space. And that system drives small farmers out of business. It's not financially practical or feasible. And so instead, how can we create a market for these small scale farmers where they're able to do things the way that we all want? No pharmaceutical interventions, no vaccines, no antibiotics, no hormones. Have biologically appropriate food that's low in PUFA for these animals. So then that way we're consuming lower PUFA amounts. Not rely on bare toxic pesticides and chemicals because we're working with Mother Nature. We're going back to how things used to be, but trying to adapt that into modern times. There's a lot of complications. There's a lot of high costs, shipping, packaging. These are all things that we're trying to work on behind the scenes. And over time, the goal is to get costs lower. But we have to start somewhere where the farmers are profitable. That's step one. If farmers are not profitable, 10 years from now, none of the food will be able to be produced and we'll rely on packaged food from the grocery store. So we have to make sure that farmers are profitable. That's step one. And then figuring out better distribution systems and packaging. So that's kind of what we're working on behind the scenes. We've developed amazing products. We have incredible farm partners. Now we're kind of optimizing the distribution and exploring options with Dr. Mercola, for example, on freeze drying eggs. Right now, we do ship 4 dozen eggs all over the country directly to your door. That does require packaging, because when you go to the grocery store, you just get the eggs in the cartons, and Vital Farms organic pasture raised are sometimes $12 to $14 in the grocery store. Well, I'm sorry, I just sent those eggs in for testing. They are the exact same fatty acid profile as cage-free eggs from a local grocery store called Meijer, because PUFAs in equals PUFAs out. If they're eating organic soybeans, still have the same amount of PUFAs as non-organic soybeans, right? The conventional system is so reliant on high PUFA, high phytoestrogen feed ingredients because these are subsidized by the government. And so the input costs are low. My feed for our chickens is 5 to 6 times higher than conventional feed. And so that, of course, is going to raise the price. So that's a big problem.
That's the biggest contributing cost to the total product, right?
Yep.
It's the cost of the feed.
And that's because of all this stuff that's happened in the last 50 to 70 years. The Farm Bill, which has subsidized the production of certain crops, and we've overproduced so much that now the costs are so low for feed producers. And so doing anything outside of the conventional system is more costly because the system was built on these subsidies. It was built on this Farm Bill. And so the more that consumers choose options that are outside of the conventional agriculture system, the more we can decentralize and hopefully over time, change where resources are put and improve the system as a whole. But for now, like, our costs are higher simply because of the feed ingredients and because we also want to make sure that farmers are profitable and actually paid enough where they can afford to keep the lights on while just farming. Because if we have farmers just farming, they're going to pay better attention to the land. They're going to be able to not use any chemicals or pharmaceutical interventions. We want farmers to do well, because if they're doing well, they'll produce better products. You'll get better products. You'll be healthier. So there's a number of issues with the conventional system that will improve as we decentralize and create these smaller network of farmers. So that's what we're doing with Nourish Food Club, Angel Acres Egg Food Club, and we are a partnership of small scale farmers, and we do ship all over the US, and we are finally open for other
That's
buyers.
Good news. How long have you been open for?
Just like a week or so, because we
Wow, it's good news. And I think, didn't your shipping costs get down to because you renegotiated rates with FedEx?
Yep, and we got better box prices, so our costs are lower. And so let me do this math real quick. So with divided by 56, 9 divided by 4. So with shipping now, we are at like $15 to $17 a dozen. And I know that sounds high, but it's delivered directly to your door. And
it's better than 20.
It's better than 20. We're getting down, and we're trying to make it more accessible. But I think it's helpful to realize when you go to the grocery store and you're buying $12 to $14 organic pasture raised eggs, it's the same PUFA. Like, there's going to be more micronutrients, but it's the same PUFA percentage.
Yeah, and Vital Farms, was that the name of the brand?
Yep.
They're one of the more popular ones, and that's why you measured them, right? And they're advertised as organic, and they are organic. No one's disputing that. But more importantly is the amount of dangerous PUFA linoleic acid that's in there.
Because like chickens are just like us, we're monogastric, and so the amount of PUFAs that we consume dietarily impacts the types of PUFAs and types of fat inside of us, which then impacts our metabolic rates. And so if chickens are eating PUFAs in equals PUFAs out. For humans, then we would be consuming higher PUFAs. So the whole goal is, how do we get back to the 1900 level linoleic acid consumption, which was very low, because that's removing metabolic breaks. So that way our metabolism, our cellular utilization of T3 is improved. We can get more electron flow, more ATP, more functions are turned on, more heat generated, more CO2 produced. So the whole goal is to reduce the amount of metabolic breaks through lower PUFA intake. And so I don't want people to be afraid of, Vital Farms eggs or conventional eggs or high PUFA eggs. I think just if you are going to have those, that's totally fine. Just maybe keep your consumption to 2 or less a day. So that way
the LA goes up pretty significantly after 2.
Yeah.
You can tolerate 2, but not 4.
Do the best that you can. If that's all you can access right now, it's still valuable to get those nutrients from egg yolks in, But if you're doing a bunch of them, that's where things can be problematic because you're just bumping up your PUFA and linoleic acid, which is going to interfere with your carbohydrate metabolism. So do the best you can, source the best you can, and don't be afraid of conventional food. Instead, just be aware, oh, hey, if I go above this certain amount, maybe I'll start to run into problems. So keep it to 2 a day.
Yeah, it's similar with egg yolks too. Yes, you can eat raw egg yolks if you're having the yolk. The biotin is somewhat balanced, but it's still better not to. I think you want to, if you're going to have the yolks of the whites, then they should be cooked.
Yeah.
Now, you can probably get by with two, and there's still some serotonin issues, and there's some question about how much you absorb depending on what other proteins you're consuming with them. But I personally don't like to eat the egg whites. But if you're going to have one or two, it's probably not a big deal. If you're having 4 or more a day, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
The tryptophan in there will add up, and you'll lead to higher serotonin levels, which is something that causes fibrosis and will likely increase your risk of disease. You just do not want high serotonin levels. It's a myth. We've gone over that before, as has Georgia Dinkoff.
The egg whites have some amino acids in them that can be anti-thyroid if they aren't balanced with other anti-inflammatory amino acids that are high in like bone broth, collagen, gelatin. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And I just wanted to highlight again the fact that you're not just a chicken farmer, but it's a farmer in the true sense that one of the most important aspects of raising chickens is to make sure that they're fed. If they're not fed, they die. So what you're engaging is, as a chicken farmer, is navigating and orchestrating the growing of the food for the chickens in a way that is relatively complex to navigate, because you've got to minimize the cost, and a big part of the cost is the transportation. So that means you have to find farmers growing locally that can provide the food at the lowest possible price. So maybe you can just touch on that, and I want to talk about using eggs therapeutically.
Yep. So another thing that we have done, which has it's been very fulfilling for me, is seed to fork. And so chickens require feed. Mm-hmm. So we then thought, okay, let's get row crop farm partners to produce the feed. So now we know exactly where all the feed ingredients are coming from. And that's pretty important because organic kind of means nothing these days, which is really sad. And then a lot of conventional grains are desiccated with heavy glyphosate utilization. And a lot of row crop farming is very destructive to soil health. And so our row crop farm partners are producing our grains that our chickens are eating regeneratively. And so what that means is no toxic chemicals, because we don't want to destroy the soil microbiome. It's like our gut microbiome for the soil. It's what allows Mother Nature to function properly. And so we're working with Mother Nature with our row crop partners. And that's where I think that there's the biggest potential in impacting the agriculture system as a whole. Because if we stop buying from conventional row crop farmers, that removes their market. So if we're creating this other market, and conventional row crop farmers are like, hey, I can get paid a little bit more if I change what crops I'm using and stop using chemicals. Oh, I'd love to do that. So then they'll jump to our market, and they'll have to follow certain things like, no, you cannot use pesticides. You cannot do heavy tillage. You need to implement regenerative systems. And here's the crops that you can grow. It's not soybeans. So providing this other market, then there's less of a reliance on Bayer and their toxic chemicals. And so the more that we can slowly grow this over time, we create another market for the farmers that they don't have to rely on the conventional system, because the conventional system, it's not working.
I want to point something out that's not intuitively obvious. There's not many people. In fact, you may be the only one that understands this as a chicken farmer, because there are a lot of people promote regenerative agriculture and have been very impactful in teaching these principles. And I can think of many. Joel Salatin, Polyface Farms I visited, Will Harris in Georgia, and Gabe Brown in Nebraska. And there's many, many, many others, all well-intentioned, and they're doing wonderful things with the soil. But they don't understand these seed oils and the dangers of them. And none of them do. I don't know of any other person who understands health at the level you do. And to deny that you don't, after listening to what we've already discussed, you'd have to be out of your mind, or it may be in your mind, not in the ocean. put it another way. But so you're really one of the only ones that I know of, and I know most of them, that's doing this. And maybe there's others that I'm unaware, and I'll be corrected if I'm told that. But you're doing some pretty extraordinary work that is just not appreciated. And it's just delights me to see that you're getting the cost of your eggs down almost close to what conventional organic eggs are being sold for. So congratulations on doing that. It's almost the same. So you just got to be making it seems like it would be an unwise choice to purchase one of those if you're purchasing them already, to not, instead of purchasing yours.
I think I appreciate that, Dr. Mercola, a lot. And I'm very grateful for our continued partnership in taking down big pharma and big ag. Like, you guys wait 5 years, wait to see what happens. Rocket ship, right? Rocket ship. I think it's important for people to realize that it's not just about avoiding toxins, right? Mm-hmm. We have to get these metabolic breaks out of the food system. And until someone really recognizes that, we're not going to see huge changes in human health. And I think that Robert Kennedy and him talking about seed oils, getting rid of seed oils out of the food system, getting rid of and implementing tallow instead, I think that those are important discussions. But what the animals are eating, I think, is also important, because we've drastically changed what the fatty acid composition of chicken and pigs are. And scientists are figuring out how to do the same thing with cows now. So ruminant animals aren't safe anymore because of rumen bypass, where they're able to almost significantly increase the PUFA concentration of milk and beef fat. Like, that's coming. That's the next stage. That's research is millions of dollars are going towards that research right now, because of this false belief that saturated fat is bad for us and PUFAs are good for us. And we've got to, that's got to stop, because that's what's driving our conventional agriculture system. But it's related to statins, because if this whole idea that saturated fat is good for us, PUFAs are bad for us, and dietary cholesterol doesn't need to be as low as possible, if that becomes pervasive, then the usage of statins goes away, and they can't have that, right? That's the destruction of biopharma and their profits. So it's this huge, biopharma and big ag are connected. And that's a big reason why I'm so excited about partnering with Dr. Mercola on so many things, because if we can eliminate the use of pharmaceuticals and eliminate the use of big ag chemicals, that takes down huge power that is holding us back in taking control of our health. And so they are connected. Big ag and big pharma are one. And it is going to require a orchestrated, concentrated partnership effort of everyone to create these alternative markets, alternative health paths, where we don't rely on them, because right now they have just continuous input because the system itself is built on them. The system as it is requires their inputs. And so if we can create alternative systems, alternative farm cooperatives, alternative health markets like the Mercola Health Coach app, like, these are alternative pathways that then diverts consumers' dollars elsewhere. And so I think as a consumer, realizing okay, day to day, where is my money being spent? That's an important thing to consider when we think 5-10 years from now, because we all don't like it, but we need money to be able to make advancements and continue to grow and continue to expand. Farmers need money to pay the bills. And there's a reason food costs are so low. The conventional agriculture system has made food costs so low at the cost of soil health and human health.
Yeah, and you certainly need money to pay the bills. And you certainly, I think most people need cellular energy to have enough energy to do productive work to get paid to pay the bills. So that's a big part of the equation. So you can ignore it for a while and put it on hold, but eventually it will catch up to you, and then you're going to have other complications. You're going to be having a lot of doctor visits and taking pharmaceuticals and making visits that you don't necessarily want, and you're going to be suffering. There's a lot of needless pain and suffering that can be easily avoided if you provide your body what it requires, because as you mentioned earlier, your body wants to be healthy. It is designed intrinsically to be healthy. Left to itself, that is exactly where it goes if you minimize the toxins and provide the right nutrients. it will improve. There's an essential premise of my book is there's virtually no disease known to man that can't be reversed. If you catch it, if you get it before you almost exhausted all your cellular energy or damaged it by taking really potent poisons like chemotherapy. So assuming that you're not at that level, almost all disease can be reversed. I will stick to that. I know that's possible. I've seen it so many times in my own clinical career, and I'm sure you've seen it. So we know that's true. So I'm so excited that you've been able to almost equalize now to some of the major organic brands. But our goal is to make it even more affordable. And that's what this freeze-dried egg yolk. So I want to pivot over to there a bit and describe the importance of this and how many egg yolks do you think the average person needs a day? Now, I've come to the conclusion that the only viable source of one of the most important nutrients we need, which is choline, is egg yolks. There really is no other good source of it. And if you don't go get choline is part of a really important neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which is parasympathetic nervous system, which we all know we need more of. And if you're not getting that, you're going to have problems for sure. So if you just look at the nutrient values of an egg yolk, you need about the average adult will need about 4 egg yolks a day, 3 to 4. If you're a small woman like yourself or smaller, and there are many women who are smaller than you, then maybe 3 is good. But otherwise, you're going to need 4 egg yolks. And go ahead.
Could go more.
Oh, could go more. It's not dangerous. I do 6 a day.
Yeah,
I do 6 a day.
I'd say 3 to 6.
Yeah, that's what I do. I do 6, but I don't eat any of the whites. And we share a little different viewpoint. We've had this discussion before, but I have in the past given my whites to the chickens, but now I don't have any. Today marks the day I'm getting rid of my chickens. It's like a day celebration.
So much time back.
Yeah, well, not for me, because fortunately it's someone that works for me that does this, but he can do other things than this. But I put in many, many, many hours raising chickens. I did my time, and I can deeply appreciate this. But instead, you can get the finished product, freeze-dried egg yolks, which are easier to ship. They're not as perishable. They don't break. They're not as fragile, and more dense because I think, as I said, 5 pounds. 5 pounds was 300 eggs, the most important part of the eggs. And now the whites do serve some value. There are some benefits for it, but the eggshells probably have more value than the whites. And, we're in the process of formulating products for those from eggshells that are very, very useful. And we'll go into that another time. But
so I think what you're describing right now is, I think one of the most beautiful parts about this is we're combining ancient wisdom of how to farm in a way that supports human health with cool modern technology. Like, let's embrace that, hey, modern times have brought us some pretty cool things like freeze drying. So now how can we combine them and provide available resources that allow someone to fit things into their daily life? So now you can buy the fresh eggs, right? If I am a big fresh egg kind of gal, I love over easy eggs. I love spreading yolks onto my sourdough bread. Like, I love an over easy egg. Whereas Dr. Mercola is a little bit more functional in your nutrition, and scooping out 2 tablespoons of freeze-dried egg yolk powder into a drink, into your Ninja Creamy, into a smoothie. That's a very easy.
A mixture of white rice.
White rice is a very easy way to get these nutrients in without the concern of overdoing your linoleic acid. Because right now, conventional agriculture eggs are linoleic acid bombs because poof is in equals poof is out. I will say egg yolks, choline is very important. Choline is probably one of the most important nutrients in an egg, but pasture-raised egg yolks are one of the best sources of vitamin K2 as well. And vitamin K2 is non-detectable in conventional eggs because they're not out on grass eating vitamin K1. So the egg yolk is just, it is the ultimate superfood, potentially.
But probably one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet for human health. There are other ones that are more dense, like the liver, but you can't eat enough. And there is choline in the liver, but you can't eat enough without becoming toxic from the liver because it's not as dense as it is in eggs.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's exciting. This is a simple way to make things even more cost affordable and easy. And if you store it properly, it could last in your refrigerator. Once you open up, it comes vacuum packed, and that if it's a vacuum packed it can store for maybe 5 to 10 years. Once you open it up, it's a different scenario because you introduce moisture. But still, in the fridge, it could probably last for a year or two, which is a lot longer than a dozen eggs last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in order to make this project possible, we are going to need like more small scale farmers. And we've had quite a few people reach out about, hey, I live in Minnesota and like I'd love to be like a partner in the egg operation. And I think that that's great. And we want to get to that place. Unfortunately, having one farm in a random state, then collaborate with farms in like a hub in a different state, it's going to take us some time to build more hubs. But right now we do need to focus in order to keep costs low. We have to focus on keeping our small farmers close to our hubs because that will allow us to keep costs low. If we've got to truck eggs in from a different state to a hub to be able to process it and then either freeze dry it or ship it as fresh eggs in cartons, like that just adds cost. And so just for anyone that's interested, like this is long-term vision. We do want multiple hubs throughout the country, and that will help us get costs low, but we have to start somewhere. And there's only a certain amount of hours in the day, and we're figuring out all of these logistical challenges and resource challenges, but we'll get there.
Yeah, and for the freeze-dried eggs, that was a challenge too because it requires certification from the federal government, FDA, to have food-grade processing units, and they don't award those overnight. Sometimes it takes over 2 years to get the certification. They don't make it easy. They put these hurdles in place for specific reasons. So we're in the process of navigating through these hurdles so that we can offer these products even sooner. Because in my view, and I think we both share this, unless you have some type of severe sensitivity, I think almost every adult, or maybe every human, should be on egg yolks every day.
And sensitivities to eggs is directly related to what the chicken is eating. We have several customers who have never been able to eat eggs before, but it's very clear if there's something that you don't tolerate well that's in their feed, it gets passed to the egg yolk. And so, for example, if someone is sensitive to soy or sensitive to corn, those food sensitivities get passed into the egg yolk. And another example is like the phytoestrogen content. So soy is very high in phytoestrogens. Well, those phytoestrogens get passed into the egg yolk. And so that's contributing to your estrogen potential imbalance and estrogen dominance because you're taking little niblets of phytoestrogen every day through the animal fats or eggs that you're consuming. And that's an unfortunate thing about the conventional food system is it's not just loaded with PUFAs, it's also loaded with phytoestrogens that we've never consumed at high levels before.
Let me just expand on that because there's likely some confusions for people who just heard that because there's a large number of people who believe phytoestrogens are healthy and beneficial because they think that estrogen is healthy, but you're saying that as everyone understands that, and that's not the case at all.
That's a good point.
It's really important to understand that when she says phytoestrogens, I want your brain to convert that to microplastics. Now, they are different chemicals for sure, 100%, but biologically, they provide almost identical impacts in your body. Microplastics equals phytoestrogens equals regular estrogens. They have the same mechanism. Briefly, they increase intracellular ion concentrations, which causes an increase in superoxide and nitric oxides, which increases peroxynitrite, which devastates mitochondrial function. It destroys mitochondrial function and causes mitochondria to die prematurely and perish. So you don't want phytoestrogens, you don't want microplastics. And together, those are really synergistic villains.
Phytoestrogens are high in flax and soy the most, and they're plant estrogens. And a lot of people think that they're beneficial. But if you actually dive into the literature, those studies are flawed. And for example, the one that they use the most is like this mouse study where the ovaries are removed. The ovaries are removed. So like you gotta think critically. Like phytoestrogens have never been a huge staple. Flax and soy have never been large staples of our diet. And we're now introducing estrogen-like compounds that have been shown to activate estrogen receptors the same way. We're eating that through, fake dairy products, through soy milk, soy cheese, all of that. Flax is in everything now. Look at your breads, look at your crackers. We're drastically
omega-3 eggs.
Yeah, flax eggs and soy-fed eggs. Those are the studies show, like it's very clear. The studies show if a chicken is consuming high phytoestrogen foods, that gets passed into their fat as well. And so then we're eating that, and it's like taking little nibbles of birth control every day. And the problem is soy is like soy and flax, they're high in PUFAs and they're high in phytoestrogens. PUFAs damage our ability to detoxify estrogen. So estrogen is a fat, it gets stored in our fat. And in order to detoxify, there's this pathway that makes it water soluble, which then we can excrete out of the body. And PUFAs damage that pathway. So it's like we're just contributing to higher and higher stored estrogen, which your blood work, your serum blood work, serum estrogen is not going to represent, because your serum estrogen is very different than your stored estrogen levels. Georgi Dinkov has plenty of examples of this now through his hair testing, where he compares hair estrogen levels, which is stored estrogen, compared to serum estrogen, and it's very different. And so we got to be really cognizant of what we're eating every single day, and overdosing on estrogens and PUFAs. Again, like we said, these are things that are going to strongly inhibit your cellular energy production.
I just want to emphasize the point you just made about the concentration of estrogen in the blood, which is the myth that almost every physician doesn't understand, that estrogen is not in the serum. It is not in the blood. It is stored in the tissues. Doing a blood test, and in fact, in our new blood testing systems I refer to, we will not allow people to test their estrogen level. We will not allow that. We will not offer it because it's not a valid test.
Will you test prolactin?
100%, yeah. That's a required test, actually.
Great.
Of course, yeah. Everyone tests. That's one of the most important tests that we have is prolactin. But we're not going to offer estrogen, and they use these low estrogen results in your blood as a justification for recommending estrogen supplementation. It is just a massive confusion, misunderstanding. Pete figured this out well over 50 years ago, and it's not. And physicians have not caught up to him yet.
Yeah,
which is tragic.
And it impacts the next generation, right? There's a lot of epigenetics involved here, which is
absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground, and I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to reconnect with you. You've been unavailable because you're traveling around the country almost every week, securing all these farmers and selling at these hubs, and you're busy. You are beyond busy. And I'm just, it's always good when we can get together and connect on a podcast. So people need to know, if now that there's no back order, how do they order these incredible eggs
So we are a little bit different than the grocery store because we operate on 7-day cycles to make sure that you're getting fresh eggs. So we will restock twice a week on Fridays and Tuesdays, but we are now open for ordering. So you can try out some eggs, and we are also opening up for our Nourish products, which is low PUFA chicken and pork and beef and stuff like that. And if you want to order from Nourish, just email customer support and say, Ashley said that my account can be activated. Just tell Kristen that. So we're scaling in a way that's allowing us to get more farm partners in. We had to build our procedures and our requirements, because if a small farmer doesn't have that, we've got to find a way to, quality control while keeping everyone small. So the conventional system is large farmers, fewer of them. But now here we're trying to do more small scale. So it's kind of completely opposite. So we're excited that we have those systems in place and we're slowly scaling. So check out Angel Acres Farm for eggs, Nourish Cooperative for other products, and very grateful for this opportunity to rebuild the small food system with you. And I would say the freeze-dried egg yolks probably
down the road next year.
Now, but
hopefully by next year, early next year. It depends how long it takes us to navigate through the regulatory.
And you can travel with them. How fun is that?
Oh my gosh. You don't have to worry about eating eggs out anymore. You can bring them with you, and they don't take up much space. Literally, a tablespoon is 2 eggs, 2 egg yolks.
Cool.
Really, that's all you need. So, but you neglected to mention that you also sell cheese, which is one of the biggest delights of my life. And you introduced me that I was off of cheese for so long because I didn't understand that every time I ate cheese, it destroyed my kidney function.
Yeah.
Destroyed it. I mean, so I could not have any cheese until you helped me understand that was because they use synthetic GMO produced rennet. And the cheese that you offer is animal rennet. Now, you're not the only person in the world that does this. There are other places.
Yeah, for sure.
This is actually one of the beneficial things of Whole Foods. They make it really easy to identify cheeses they sell with animal rennet. So congratulations to them for doing that.
Yeah.
But you do it also. And
it's confusing.
I have 3 ounces of your cheese every day. The
best cheese. It's confusing right now for customers, and I apologize. We have 3 separate websites, and so maybe we can include those, but we're working towards this combined website that should be done in February where everything's in one place. So I apologize that it's a little bit confusing to navigate right now, but we're doing the best we can. We're starting from the ground up, right? And so there are 3 separate websites. There's a cheese website, there's a Nourish website, and then there's egg website. So grateful for anyone
let me just summarize that, though, that I can, even though it may be a bit difficult to navigate through navigate through websites, I can assure you with the highest degree of confidence that that's far easier than growing your own chicken eggs and making your own milk or cheese. So, this she's taken most of the work out for you, and eventually she'll have this solved because of logistics. But for now, you just have to tolerate it, and if you want good food, it's definitely worth it. This is definitely what I eat. So
only 3 months away from our new website, and then hopefully around that same time the freeze dried yolks, and we can do so many things with that.
Yeah,
I have ideas.
Yeah. Well, thank you for what you're doing, your commitment, your dedication, and showing so many people the way to improve their health, and an easy, simple, rational way that only an engineer could do, whose mind was nourished properly. And you are a PhD. Goals. We don't mention it, but you were a PhD engineer, but yes. You chose to never even enter the profession and do what your passion was, which is farming.
My goal, and I hope everyone walks away from this, is that health shouldn't be hard. You shouldn't be overwhelmed, and you are not forever broken. If you give the body the tools it needs, remove the metabolic breaks, and use simple body temperature measurements and soon to be Mercola Health blood work every once in a while, like, you will be able to see firsthand you can move the needle forward in your health. And it's very freeing and empowering to understand this metabolic view of health, because then you aren't so focused in on, hey, my liver is messed up or my heart is messed up. Instead, it's, okay, let's improve systemic energy production. And it is so freeing. Your mental state's going to be so much better. And life is just easier, and it's more fun and fulfilling. And so I hope everyone can reach that level of getting rid of diet dogma, getting rid of fear-based thinking, and instead focus more on the beautiful thing that life has to offer, and focusing more on metabolism, because that's where you'll really start to see yourself thrive.
Now, what a beautiful way to close. Those are great words of wisdom. Thank you for sharing them.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mercola. I always appreciate these conversations.
All right. Good.
Thanks so much for watching. Remember, hit the like and subscribe button so you can get more videos that can help you and your family take control of your health.